Good morning, Doug Levi, Strategic Insurance Services, reaching out to our team and those that are also following us online. And I wanted to talk today about pushing past no when dealing with a client. And this came up this week with me personally. Okay, I'm still involved in working with clients, working on new business. I was working with a client. It was on a commercial file, and I was following up with him. Thought we had a good proposal. Call the client. Client says, hey, thanks for following up. I've chosen to go in another direction. So I'm going to pause the story there and say, if and when that happens to you, and it will, what do you do? So I pose 3 questions to start. A, go for a long cry. B, tell the client they're a jerk face. Or C, learn to push past no in a good way and give yourself a chance at the business. So let me break down my scenario, and then I'm going to give you guys some bullet points of things to think about. So first thing you want to do when you hear something like that, you need to learn to take the punch. It's funny, right now I'm boxing with my son. So my son Asher's 4.5. And we got him some boxing gloves. I got boxing gloves, and he loves to box with Daddy at night. And so we're boxing, and I'm also teaching him it's not just about punching, but you got to be able to take the punch. So where am I going with that? Well, option B says tell the client they're a jerk face. You may feel when a client says no, rejected. Frankly, you probably will at some level. It's one of the biggest things that salespeople face is having to deal with rejection. So you've got to be prepared mentally of how am I going to handle that? You've got to be able to take the punch or bounce back, pick your analogy, and then set yourself up for success. So what does that look like? You may do a transitional phrase and say something like, oh, wow, tell me about the option you went with. Okay, very non-threatening, open-ended question. Allows you to extend the conversation. And that's what I did with this client. Well, I picked this carrier and here's why. Okay, great. Now, as soon as he told me the carrier, and I'm purposely going to not mention the names of carriers and things like that or other agents, I knew for a fact that this carrier doesn't write his type of business. So I started to unpack the scenario a little bit and ask him some more questions. I start asking him questions about the coverage he picked. I then say, hey, do you have a few minutes now to hop on a call and just compare everything apples to apples to make sure you're not missing anything? And he said, sure. So now the door starts to wedge open a little bit more. Okay, now I'm going to give you the end of the story right now. I wound up writing the file. I got the deal. It was a $9,000 commercial policy that when I called the client, he said no. I went somewhere else. Okay, so again, this whole video is about learning to push past no with a client in a good way. So first thing as I scroll down here, I'm just putting handle your business in a professional way, right? We kind of talked about that. I use the analogy of take the punch, take the blow, bounce back, etc. But you want to be very professional with it. The worst thing you can do is sound like a spoiled kid who didn't get their milk and you sound upset, and I've heard salespeople like this. What do you mean? I can't believe you're not going with me. Do you know how hard I worked on this? I mean, I've heard some ridiculous things. That never puts you in a position of power, right? Think about that. And there's definitely a push-pull that happens in communication. And more times than not, the psychology says the more I push, the more likely someone is to resist. Now, again, the title of this is how to push past no. So, we're kind of massaging that word a little bit. And this is definitely a higher end skill. This is something that takes time. But I'm encouraging you guys to practice this. Don't just take no for the answer. Handle your business in a professional way. Do it nicely, right? And ask questions, right? One of the things I put is create doubt if legitimate. Are the coverages the same? Are the endorsements the same? There's a lot of carriers now that put an actual cash value endorsement on the roof in commercial insurance. I know that. I see it. There's a lot of carriers on homeowners that put a water damage limitation where they'll only cover you up to $10,000. Now, most other agents aren't taking the time to explain these things. So here's where you can put that little seed of doubt in there and say, have you checked these things out? Now, it's legitimate, right? You're truly doing something that's legitimate. Never do something that's not legitimate, unethical, not done with integrity, right? Our core values are integrity, service, and excellence. Integrity's got to be at the heart of what you're doing. But asking those questions and creating some layer of that doubt will often engage the client to say, what do I have? And allow you to continue the conversation, right? And then from there, it's, can I review what you've got to make sure we're not missing anything? Now, I'm also doing some training right now with a new team member who's working on another commercial deal that we thought we were going to get, and now she's saying she wants to go somewhere else. So we're working through this right now. The other thing that you want to do, and I didn't put this in here, I'm going to add it literally as we're speaking, is go over the why you / why us. This is powerful, guys. So again, thinking about the value proposition that you can do, okay? Actually, I guess I did put that. The value proposition that you can do is very, very important, right? So again, you want to ask questions like, tell me about the other agent. Have you been able to get them on their cell phone, text, etc.? If you've been doing those things with the client, right? To again, make them think, how accessible is the other agent? What have they been doing? If you've also done this the way we teach, to do it up front, you want to do things like present the YSIS value proposition up front at some level. And we did a video on this earlier this week on this, where we give clients 4 specific things that separates us from other agents. Even if the carrier is the same, coverage, everything else is the same. You want to look to create that wedge. So we talk about annual protection reviews, cutting edge technology for our clients, dedicated claims process, and then we're one-stop shop where we can help handle all your insurance needs. You may, in midst of the conversation, engaging, bring those things back up. Tell me about what the other agency can do for you long-term. What proactive things do they do for you? Here's some of the things that we do, right? You want to make that differentiation. And then the last thing I just put in here is ask for the business again, right? Especially if you've taken the time to build the relationship. It's amazing what can happen. So no is not always a closed door, okay? So I always encourage you guys, think about this as you're working with clients. Be prepared mentally as you go in and learn to push past no in a good way. And as always, guys, dream big, make it happen. Have a great day, great weekend. I'm here for you and helping. If I can do anything for you, let me know. Bye-bye.